Emily, this is a video to show you what I mean about how I water my houseplants. So these are the two plants I'm going to try to water, and they're quite dry. When I stick my finger in, I don't feel any sort of dampness down like a finger bit like this. So I know they're dry and they need water. So this pot, these two are, it's lucky because it comes with another little container pot that doesn't have a hole in it. So what I'm going to do is, rather than just watering from the top, I'm going to take my container and put it in the sink. And I'm using this container because it just fits my pot. Some of my other pots, I don't have a container like this, so I have a couple of choices. I can get a big cooking pot or a bowl out of the cabinet and fill it with water instead. I could use my sink, but my sink is so big that it would take a lot of water to get the right depth for my pot. So I'm going to stick it in there, and what I want is for the water that's around my pot now to come up to the height of the soil, because then when I water from the top, the water is getting pushed up into the dirt from two directions. It's coming down from the top, and then the water that's around it makes the water push up. So it doesn't just run through my pot, it actually forces the pot soil to soak up, because that's just the way water works, right? So the water that's surrounding it on the outside is pushing up, and I'm putting water in the top. And so together I keep doing that until I get this completely full. No more water can come in or out, right? So basically, usually I fill up this part on the inside. You can't really see it until when I set the pot in it, the water is up to the same level as the soil. And then I know that if I sit it here for a few minutes, the soil will be forced to actually soak up like a sponge all over. Right now the pot is kind of floating in the water that's around it. So I'm just going to leave it sitting there until it doesn't float anymore. It kind of sinks in the water and stays there. And then I know that the water is getting pushed up into the soil as well as around the pot, right? And you can do that in a sink. And sometimes what will happen is the soil, the root ball in the soil, will actually rise up out of the pot and kind of float on the water. So you just kind of use your fingers and make sure it's all pushed down, right? That your plant is not floating. And then it will start to soak up the water, and then it won't float anymore because it'll be as heavy as the water around it. Sometimes when I'm doing this, I can even see little bubbles coming up. I don't see that this time. That just tells you that there was air trapped in the soil, which is one of the things that makes it float and pushes the water away and doesn't let it soak in. So if you do this, it will make all the air bubbles that are in the soil rise to the top. All the dirt will eventually, like a sponge, soak up water. So I'll leave it sitting here. Sometimes I'll walk away and go do something else while it's sitting here in the water. Sometimes I'll just stand here and watch it until I think it's had a chance for the soil to really get damp and soak up. Then what I can do is I can pick this pot out of there, and all the water will drain back out, right? But the dirt, I can feel it. The pot is like super heavy now. It's not light anymore. So that means that the water is actually in the dirt. And then I just make sure I pour all this out. I let the plant drain really, really well before I put it back in its container or in its little, this other plant just has a dish it sits in, because you don't also want your plants to sit in some water, because then the bottom roots at the bottom of the pot will rot and the plant will die. So you want to make sure it's really drained. I dump this out and I put my pot back in it. And that's how I water my plants.